and welcome back to another Double Take Review, where we give you our 2-take double dose injection of pop culture criticism because that's what Dr. Malcolm ordered. Just a heads up, first half of the show will be spoiler free for your convenience, at which point we'll be swinging into spoiler territory where we put a big warning on the screen, spared no expense, all courtesy of our in-house spoiler monkeys. Without further ado, action! What are we watching?
Jurassic World, Fallen Kingdom.
In Jurassic Park, scary in the dark. I'm so scared that I'll be eaten.
Welcome to the Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom review. Action. We just saw the sequel to Jurassic World. Jurassic Park is my favorite movie of all time. How did you feel about this sequel to Jurassic World?
I think it's if you like all the Jurassic Park movies and if you like Jurassic World, I think you're gonna like this one. It is very similar to the first one, to the Jurassic World. So the sequel kind of resembles even the plot wise. I mean, they put some stuff in there, but beat for beat, it follows similar themes and. It's perfectly adequate. What did you think?
When I was watching it, just to go off of it has a similar formula. I was watching the previous films coming up to this one, and I did notice they repeat a lot of imagery, which I didn't notice before, in all the movies. And I think they use that obviously to harken back to the very first movie and that feeling that you get. And I think subliminally, it just sort of makes you think about that first one and like it a little better. Perfectly adequate, you call this movie? I think you're right. There's nothing, it's not something that will blow you away like the first one, or even the second. Back then, you have to understand too, I remember what it was like. That theater was packed for the Lost World Jurassic Park, and there was a buzz coming out of the theater. It made a lot of money, and me as like a 9-year-old coming out of that theater, I really enjoyed it too. I had a big problem with how the end of that movie ended up with the dinosaur rampaging through San Francisco.
Mm-hmm. The second one.
Yes, but I still really enjoyed it. I also noticed like this movie plays off a lot of that movie in particular, The Lost World Jurassic Park. You have another team going to an island attempting to take dinosaurs off of it, right? Just what happened in number 2. And I can't say too much else because then I might be spoiling it, but there's a lot of things that really remind you of The Lost World in particular.
If you want to talk about the things that we liked in the movie, I would say, as always, Chris Pratt is fantastic.
The characters.
Yeah, he is. He's very charming. I like to just see him on screen, even though, as far as character development, we don't really know much about him. But still, he's very funny.
He's charismatic, and he's a badass, and smart. He knows how to handle these animals. What did you feel about Claire's second go-around in this franchise? Bryce Dallas Howard's character.
I don't know. I mean, because we did a double feature, so we saw the first one and then the second one. I think she's a terrible human being. I mean, a lot of people died because
her character. Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, not the actress. I'm just saying the character in the movie because she made really bad decisions in the first one, and in this one, I guess she was kind of redeeming herself.
Well, okay, I did want to talk about that. In the first movie, everything that she does not indicate that she cares about those animals. Mm-hmm. In this movie, her character does show a level of empathy for the creatures, and that drives a lot of her character motivations. That very well could have happened in between the two movies, but I did kind of... I don't really see a good reason as to why that happened. Like, there was no big character arc for her in the first one that would make her think that way, Mm-hmm. So if they are trying to make the character a little more deep with this sequel, I can get that. But like you said, having watched the double feature, it was like, why is she acting different? Like, she was more of a horrible person in that first movie. And I do think that a lot of that comes from, in all these movies, there's always a person in power who doesn't respect that power. John Hammond thought he could control this park and everything goes out of control. Even nature and God itself, is attacking the island with the storm in the first one. In the second one, stuff goes bad. You cannot contain these animals. You can't control nature. You can't play God. And that is the theme in all these movies. So I think that was kind of her role in the first one to a degree. But yeah, I can see why she would come off as like a horrible person.
I thought you were going to say something about the music in the movie. What did you think?
Well, ever since JP3, the music has slowly been degrading. I thought this one had a better score than the previous one, Jurassic World, but it's just not. You have to understand too, like a lot of the magic of the first movie, I feel, it really came from the music. Obviously, the technology at the time and seeing a real dinosaur in that first movie in 1993, that looked awesome. And that first scene when they go and see the brachiosaurs, there's a real magic to it that I think people remember, and the music was special. But ever since then, it's just not the same. Like, that's normal. We've had different directors, different teams of production attack it, so I understand why the music is not the same. But yeah, I did feel that one was a little bit notable in this one. Just not the same.
Speaking of the magic not being there, I've noticed when it comes to the storytelling itself, like the opening scene, it's supposed to kind of like remind you of the first Jurassic Park when they're doing they're doing something at night and then something bad is gonna happen. But for some reason, I didn't even feel that. I was like, oh, okay, this is gonna happen. They're just like copying whatever they did before. And now something is going to go bad here.
I guess you're right. There's a cage at the beginning.
Yeah.
And again, I think that goes back to them like reusing imagery and same tonal themes to make you remember that. But before we move off of characters, there was a few new introduced. How do you feel that they played? Were they interesting?
Honestly, no. I thought they were... there was a tech guy.
Tech genius. He's the boy.
What did you think of him?
I hated him.
I hated
absolutely
him so
hated him.
much. His name
absolutely
is Franklin.
What's redeemable about him? What's charismatic about him? I hated him.
I thought like that was such a bad character.
I don't even know his name. I don't know his name. I don't know. Like,
well, they kept calling Franklin, so I remember it. Yeah.
Okay.
But he was just bad.
He was the worst, I think. I'm
not saying about
the girl being close second. The other tech.
Yeah.
She wasn't tech.
She
was like
a
veterinarian.
doctor.
Yeah.
Dr. Zia Rodriguez.
Paleo veterinarian, isn't that what they called it at the beginning?
And it's just weird because like she's a former Marine too. I don't know how they write these characters. It's like, oh, we want a doctor, but we also want someone who was in the Marines. It's just like, how does this work? Like,
so Ian Malcolm is in this movie. We all know that because he's in the trailers.
Right.
He's obviously the most fun character from the first movie, and so you remember him as a charismatic character. They used him in this movie. Do you feel like he was properly utilized? If you're gonna put him in there and showcase him in the trailers,
well,
did he even act how you remember?
Well, there's a saying that says, "Forget the past, kill it if you have to."
So was a movie that came out recently. I must have blocked it from memory. But what now?
But I think it's just like, I don't know. At this point, nothing is... I think they just have a property with the Jurassic Park, Jurassic World. Characters are just there to be there and move the story forward so they can sell more toys. So I don't think that part was memorable or anything like that.
Option, how are they going to sell toys with all the Toys R Us being destroyed?
True.
I saved mine from all those years ago, but no, I don't know if that's going to be a luxury that the kids have nowadays. But I did want to jump into violence and tone. The first couple movies were always, it's cheesy, right? Bringing dinosaurs back to life and having them interact with humans, it's cheesy. However, the first two movies really approached it in a way where it was terrifying. Same way as you have a big gigantic shark in the ocean and they treat it legit and terrifying. Or you have an alien locked on a spaceship with these crew members and it's terrifying. But I think like ever since JP2 and even toward the end of JP2, they've definitely taken it more in a cheesy route. And I do feel that ever since that scene of the T-Rex rampaging through the city in JP2, that same cheesy tone, because there's a ton of comedy. If you go back and you watch it now, there's a ton of comedy. Ever since that T-Rex is on the island, there's a ton of comedy. what I miss is them treating it like these dinosaurs are scary and dangerous. And although there was a few scenes in this movie where the dinosaurs do come off as scary and dangerous, which I was surprised, the majority of the film does treat it like a gigantic joke. There's even a trailer of them with the T-Rex in the little cage, and Owen Grady has to like roll out of his mouth.
Right.
But there's just a cheesiness to the dinosaurs and their approach in these movies, and I miss that it's not as terrifying as it used to be.
Yeah, there's no way that you can compare this to the first Jurassic Park. I think that's why
it's a different time too.
I think that's why Jurassic Park is a masterpiece, and this one is just a forgettable popcorn movie.
There was something that happened in this movie, something very, very violent. I don't. Do you kind of remember what I was talking about?
Yeah, I think
it's in a cage.
Yeah,
and I remember my mouth was open because it was so. I hadn't seen something like that in a Jurassic Park movie before, and I was like, "Holy crap!"
But at the same time, like, I personally am desensitized to violence in movies, so it seems like they use it as a tool.
Well, the other thing you have to realize too is like it's dinosaurs. Like little kids love dinosaurs, and I always try to view these lenses through my eyes as if I was 7 years old, because I do very strongly remember those movies from when I was a kid. I mean, they left such an impact on me. So I always try to look at it like, would a kid like this, can they handle it? Is it entertaining? Is it magical? You know, and then I reflect on the film from there and I criticize it.
Okay.
But before we do move into spoilers, what did you feel about the story?
Ultimately, it was very serviceable. It got us from point A to point B. I did enjoy, again, Chris Pratt's performance. So I thought the story allowed him to showcase his comedic abilities.
Yeah, I thought he was better in this one than the first, just as a character and an actor too.
Yeah. What about you?
It's now that you think about it, it's a weak story. It drives the characters getting on the island and everything that happens beyond that. You have to take into account too is these are a planned trilogy, so you can kind of see where they might be taking it, but I'm always interested in seeing like how they get there. This one I feel maybe wasn't as strong to get us there. I really do feel like it was greatly filler, but it was, as you said, serviceable. I do think it was better than Jurassic World because once you around the second act, the setting changes, and I thought the movie was better after that point. I kind of wish we had gotten there sooner. There are stuff that happens at the end of the story that actually leads it in an entirely different direction too. I do feel that the story was serviceable. Not a bad movie. I would be here saying, how it was disappointing and everything, but definitely not that. But I am curious, do you recommend that they go and see it?
Yeah. I mean, this is a fun movie to watch. So if you like popcorn, if you like,
definitely a popcorn movie.
Bad pizza at the movie theater, definitely go, get the pizza, get the popcorn, watch the movie. You're going to enjoy it. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd recommend seeing it too. It might not have the same magic as some of those first couple films, but I think if you're in to just see some dinosaurs and to see them mess some stuff up, I think you'll have a decent time. And I hope you enjoy it. So, action.
It's time.
Cue the spoiler monkeys! Jurassic World. Not just a walk in the park anymore. The island is no more.
Right.
It's gone.
There are survivors, though. So,
are they on like an island at the end?
I don't know.
I saw a little lighthouse in the end, so it might be something contained.
Yeah.
But at the end of the movie, we saw that some of them actually made it off of that area, and they're roaming through America and wherever.
One of them,
Pteranodons.
One of them, a couple of them end up going to Vegas.
Do you think that's where the setting of number?
I don't know.
3
that was kind of random.
I want to say that there was like story elements that were leaked a long time ago, not from this movie, but like from previous ones about dinosaurs being in Vegas, but I could be wrong.
Okay.
But it could be cool. So what I was getting at is we are like moving towards a post-apocalyptic world, like how Planet of the Apes took it, like in the remix. What was it? Was it Dawn of the Planet of the Apes? Like it's a total different departure than the first movie. It's a post-apocalyptic world where the humans are trying to survive. Is that a possibility that we might get a Jurassic Park movie like that, where you have the humans like trying to survive desperately, like most of them have been killed, and dinosaurs roam the earth?
I mean, I would.
Kind of interesting.
Yeah, that sounds actually like something I want to.
That poster actually sort of makes you think about that.
Yeah, yeah. No, I just.
Is this ultimately where we had to end up, though?
Well, one thing that I felt watching this movie was, we kind of talked about this, like with Hangover and Hangover 2, just very similar in themes and like how they went about, doing things. I know it's a different story, but why do we have to have a kid in every single movie?
That's a Spielberg thing. Yeah, I think, but I actually agree with that, because if there wasn't a kid in there, there wouldn't be that 7-year-old that other 7-year-olds can put themselves in that shoe, or even me, like 32 years looking in on a kid, and I'm like, I remember being there. I remember the majesty of seeing these creatures and what that felt like, and how just how that made you feel as a kid.
But at some point, it feels forced. Even in the previous one,
this one in particular, because there's not really a reason for a kid to be in the story, but there's one. And while we're talking about her, she is a clone.
Yeah,
she's a clone. She is
so,
the first.
Tell me who she is.
So early on in the film, they tell you that she's something special. You don't know what she is, and that's when I was like, they've been hinting at them playing with genetic modification since the very first movie. Like, cloning was a big deal back then. But I've always wondered, I was like, have they cloned humans? Is that a thing? Like, the technology is there. They figured out a way how to do it in the films. If they're that advanced, and Jurassic World is set 22 years after the events, I think, of the first movie. So in all that time, in all the technology, humans would not be something that they would seek after, But this girl is a clone. She's a successful clone. We see her counterpart, all old and everything. And it was interesting. It was an interesting place to take it. What I'm curious of is if, that one guy having control over that power, InGen and Hammond's company, they never once looked into that. Like, they thought it was more financially viable to make dinosaurs. Like, even in terms of the government, not having access to that technology or knowing what to do, that science. If they had reached out and were like, hey, maybe it's better to clone human soldiers to send into battle, because that's ultimately what they want, right? Is they want weapons. Why not just clone humans if that technology exists? No one as a part of that team went and did the research to find out if the humans were able to be cloned. Like, it doesn't make sense to me.
Okay.
But I think her inclusion in the story sort of hints at where the franchise might go.
And I guess I would welcome that. That would be a nice departure from what
that's what I'm saying, though. It's not really a Jurassic Park franchise anymore. Like, we're getting weirder and weirder. And, like, the last movie had a mutated dinosaur, like a weird mutated
and now we have a super...
This one's even better.
Yeah. It's just like,
not Indominus, but Indo.
Yeah.
But, like, what's going to be next?
I don't know.
I was perfectly fine with normal dinosaurs. I don't know about the general movie-going public, but we need them to be all weird and mutated. I think that's cheesy. I think you're taking it even more... I think that you're taking that even more into a monster
film. Too much
film.
now.
Well, it was different before. It was like, I don't know how to explain it. I've never seen the Jaws sequels, but I don't know how you, and I know a lot of people say they suck and everything, I don't know how you move so far away from a giant scary shark. Like, how do you move a franchise in a different direction? I can only assume it's because it's not in hands that cared for it as much as they did the first one.
Right. And I guess these are properties that, with that movie and also with Jurassic Park, started by Steven Spielberg. And, like, he's a masterful director, and then now he is just basically cashing in on a property that he created. So I guess
that's his thing. He's producer. He's been a producer
So I guess
movies.
the care that the actual author can have.
Michael Crichton's dead too, so like all these films are just, he must be rolling. Yeah. I was reading, he wasn't necessarily happy with where The Lost World went either.
Okay, but he's rolling in money, so.
Spielberg.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're different. But like having such affection for the franchise and the dinosaurs, I guess it was bound to happen that if you keep making sequel after sequel after sequel, it's just going to lose some of that magic.
Right. But perfectly watchable. So
yeah.
I don't know.
Well, we are in the age of spectacle and popcorn guzzling, and that's just what it is now. But it's whatever. Do you think that it's still interesting with that containment not being there? Because if you look at movies like Alien, where the alien was contained in one space, or Jaws, where he was contained in that one area, the water surrounding that beach, and Jurassic Park, of course, where they're contained on the island. I found that interesting because they are contained. But once it opens up, it's a different movie, not as interesting. Or maybe the danger isn't there necessarily because it's so open.
I mean, I definitely see your point, but at this juncture, I think they are making the third one, so they probably had a plan behind it, because a lot of things from Jurassic World leads to Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom. Who's that scientist guy?
Dr. Wu.
Dr. Wu. Like, he shows up in this movie, and he has a substantial role in, all the shenanigans that happens in this one.
I thought he could have been utilized more. Like, if you're gonna make him the mad scientist, like, really go home with it.
For
yeah,
it.
Like,
yeah.
make him, he's alive though. He's gonna make it into the next one, and I hope that really has a good payoff. But it should be so much more. Like, that's the only reason I fight for these movies, is because those first ones meant so much to me. I know it can be better, but you're right. It was entertaining and passable, but like, why do we have to say that for so many movies nowadays? Like,
I don't know. I wish there was something more to it, but
I guess there's only so much substance you can get in a film that's very CGI heavy, and we are in this age of spectacle. So
right. All right. Thank you very much for watching our video. Please subscribe, hit that bell so you get notification from our.
Totally helps us out, and we do like to end our show with a heartfelt thank you to all of those hardworking spoiler monkeys out there, and we hope to catch you again. Keep on screen watching.